Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. Welcome to the WCF conference. Welcome to Brussels, where we will host you this year. Why Brussels is probably not going to be very difficult for you to realize. It's the topic of so much of what our conversation has been about. There really is a lot moving in the cocoa sector. There's a lot moving here in Brussels. We'll talk about that. We have an EU commissioner here on stage. We have the chair of the EU Parliament on stage. We will bring that conversation about the famous EU due diligence here on the stage, and you will have a chance to hear about that from as close as the horse's mouth gets. A lot moving in the corporate sphere. We have 3 CEOs on stage. That's definitely first time for a World Cocoa Foundation conference. Mondelēz, Nestlé, Callebaut will be here on stage at the highest level to talk about their perspectives on the cocoa sector. Again, a lot of attention, a lot of things seem to be moving. Why is it you are here? You are here with 350 people. That's a sold-out house. That's not normal for a WCF conference. That's like a rock concert. There's a long waiting list with people wanting to get into the conference today. That's how popular this year was. What's going on? There are also a lot of people not here. That's also true. You will have seen a lot of last-minute changes, an organization working very hard, a lot of movement in the schedule because some people canceled. There is a lot going on. So, we have a lot to talk about. So, let's get started. You are here to discuss, you are here to get some interesting input from stage. Take that into your breakouts, make yourself heard, and make some partnerships. That's the theme of this year's Partnership for Impact. Make it count. I'm going to give some suggestions about how you can do that. Some practical ones. With a brand new slide. That's me, you've met me. This is the network. You can find that. It's free, no password. Then, this is where it gets interesting. So, this is one of the ways in which you can build your partnerships today. The app, download it. If you haven't already, it's called CV Events. Install it. Then don't lie. If you're an attendee, click attendee. If you're a speaker, click speaker. Log in, fill in your details so people can find you. If you meet someone, then they can find you, they can find your bio, they can find everything, they can contact you, and that's one of the ways that you can get in touch throughout this conference. So that's important. What else? This is 2022, so if you just have the conversation in the room, I was just highlighting that it's important that you talk to each other, but it's 2022 again. If the conversation just stays in this room, it almost doesn't happen at all. So make sure you get out on social media. This is the hashtag, WCFPM, @WorldCocoa on Twitter. And for those of you using Facebook, /World Cocoa Foundation. Again, try to make some noise around this conference. There's a lot going on. There's important people here on stage. Make yourself heard, take that opinion, and broadcast it also for the people out there. That's another question. Then, we come at an important moment. I said there's a lot moving. There's a lot moving in the legislative sphere. There's a lot moving in the corporate sphere. There's a lot of people showing up. There's increasing civil society attention. There's political tension, but there's also new leadership. And so we will hear from the brand new president of the World Cocoa Foundation, Vincent, about his perspective on all these movements. Chris, if I can invite you for the first time.
Chief Executives, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning, everybody. It's my great pleasure to welcome you all to the 2022 World Cocoa Foundation Partnership Meeting, our first in-person event since 2019. Obviously, my first partnership meeting as president of WCF, having spent the last 2 years as WCF's senior vice president in Abidjan. As many of you have seen, my appointment and Peter Boone's election as our new chairman were announced by our board on Monday. And I will talk a bit more about these changes a little bit later. I'd like to start by thanking our sponsors who've made this event possible. Our platinum sponsor, Olam Food Ingredients, our gold sponsor, the Hershey Company, our reception sponsor, Ecom, and of course many of our other members who are also sponsors. Thank you. As you said, the event has been heavily oversubscribed, and we're excited to have 350 of you here with us, with the shared ambition of creating a thriving and sustainable cocoa sector with the well-being of farmers and their families at the heart of everything we discuss. We are obviously disappointed that the Conseil de Café Cacao and Cocoa Board have decided not to attend, and we're further disappointed that that decision extended this week to include other members and other ministers from Côte d'Ivoire and Ghana, particularly those with whom we work closely on CFI, and regrettably also some of their farmer representatives as well. We had hoped that this meeting could provide a platform for the differences between stakeholders to be aired and discussed, so that we can build the dialogue and partnerships that we need and that are critical to address the sustainability challenges in the sector. Unfortunately, that was not to be. However, I'm pleased that so many of you are here today to engage in what we hope will be forthright discussions that seek solutions. We have a fantastic programme. As Joost mentioned, the CEOs of 3 of our largest companies, which has never happened before, 2 EU commissioners, a Vice President of the European Parliament, the Chair of the International Supervisory Board of Solidaridad, and many others. So I look forward to an exciting programme. A lot has happened this year, certainly since we met virtually, globally, in the cocoa sector, and specifically at WCF. Who would have thought that since our last in-person meeting in 2019, we'd have survived a global pandemic, but now the headlines are talking about the threat of nuclear war. Well, once we were talking about the impact of COVID on consumer demand, we're now talking about devastating impact of rising input prices for farmers and soaring energy costs reducing grindings in Germany. But despite that, progress has been made in 2 major areas of cocoa sustainability. As we'll hear later from the representatives of the European Parliament and Commission, the EU's legislative agenda on deforestation and human rights continues to make progress. Our members welcome these regulatory developments, as we believe that the effective protection of human rights and the environmental standards in the cocoa supply chain can only be significantly enhanced through legislation that achieves a level playing field for all market participants. We're looking forward to the final version of the deforestation legislation in the very near future. Further, in July, 16 companies, the Côte d'Ivoire and Ghana Cocoa Initiative, the Government of Ghana and Côte d'Ivoire signed a statement of intent towards an economic pact for sustainable cocoa. All parties agreeing to work together to develop solutions, to consolidate the lid, and to achieve the transition to sustainable cocoa. Clearly, recent events show that we have work to do to rebuild this partnership, but our members look forward to engaging in the working groups envisaged in this agreement. Both of these developments can have far-reaching and positive effects as we work towards improving incomes in the cocoa sector and achieving cocoa that's sustainable in its economic, environmental and social dimensions. Within WCF, we've also seen considerable change, considerable progress. This is the 5th anniversary of the signing of the Cocoa and Forests Initiative at COP23 in Bonn. We and IDH are enormously proud of the partnerships that we built between the cocoa and chocolate companies and both government departments in Ghana and Côte d'Ivoire that were working towards the elimination of deforestation and the restoration of forests. Together, we really are driving impact on the ground, and the commitment amongst all our members remains strong. Only on Monday, 36 CFI companies were in this building working on the next phase of the initiative in alignment with both governments. And it is great to see that as we move into the next phase of CFI, the conversation and the focus is moving increasingly away from deforestation towards protection and restoration. As I mentioned earlier, it's been all change at WCF in the last 48 hours, with the board approving my appointment as president and electing Peter Boone, the chief executive of Callebaut, as our new chairman. This is the first time that the chairmanship of WCF has been held by the CEO of one of our companies, and I think it's a huge vote of confidence in WCF that somebody of Peter's seniority and stature in the industry has decided to take on this role, and we're very much looking forward to his leadership. Thank you, Peter, for agreeing to become our chairman. Peter will be speaking on a panel this morning in his capacity as chief executive, and then we'll be speaking to you a little bit later on after lunch in his capacity as our new chairman. We've also completed a strategy refresh, as I believe many of you are aware, and at the heart of that refresh, we've repeated and reiterated our vision. And our vision is that WCF's vision is to be a catalyst for a thriving, healthy and equitable cocoa sector where farmer income is improved, child labour is significantly reduced and deforestation is reversed. Our ability to deliver that vision will be heavily dependent on the theme of this partnership meeting, partnerships for impact. Our ability to create strategic relationships and collaborative programmes that deliver real impact and systemic reform. So there's 3 key areas of partnership for us going forward. We will seek to launch additional collaborative programmes like CFI to cover the other sustainability areas in cocoa. Programmes that are true partnerships between industry and government, but also with external funders that will allow us to deliver those programmes at scale. We will be looking to align these programmes with countries' long-term economic and cocoa development plans. Secondly, we will increase our focus on our role as convener to enhance the collaboration and partnership between WCF members to maximise our collective impact. We will also deliver much closer relationships with our fellow associations, GISCO, ECA and NCA, and with other key organisations that share our vision, like ICI, IDH, the GISCOs and many others. And thirdly, as mandated traceability becomes a reality and countries roll out their national systems, we will seek to partner with governments to support that implementation by leveraging the data, systems and protocols that our members have already developed. We're hopeful that traceability, allied to regulation, will not only drive compliance with deforestation, child labour and living income requirements, but most importantly allow the farmer to reap the rewards of that compliance. Before concluding, I would just like to express the heartfelt thanks of all of our members and the WCF team to Barry Parkin, our departing chairman. He unfortunately can't be here today, but he was our chairman for over 8 years. Throughout his tenure, his visionary approach to sustainability pushed us to expand our approach and to greatly increase company commitment and company involvement. He presided over many landmarks in our history, including Cocoa Action, where companies collaborated pre-competitively for the first time, and of course, the successful launch 5 years ago of CFI. We are enormously grateful for his support, vision, enthusiasm and commitment, and we are delighted that he will remain on the board going forward. Let me close by again welcoming you to the partnership meeting. On behalf of the whole team, I hope the discussions over the next few days inspire us to work harder, to accelerate inclusive and sustainable growth in cocoa, to improve farmer income, and to build the partnerships we need to achieve those goals. I'd now like to thank our platinum sponsor, Offi, again, and welcome Gerry Manley, CEO of Offi Cocoa, and Offi's Chief Sustainability Officer, to say a few words. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. And ladies, gentlemen, distinguished guests, chairmen and directors of the World Cocoa Foundation. As the platinum sponsor and a board member of WCF, I'm delighted to be with you here in person, meeting many old friends as well. And I know this will be an insightful and energizing partnership meeting. And I'm very warmly welcome our new chairman and president. Thank you. Since we last met in person, the world has been navigating an existential roller coaster, from a global pandemic to war in Ukraine, the reality of climate change, and a cost of living crisis. I would like to focus upon 2 current challenges that we have in the cocoa industry, namely climate change and living income. In combination, we want a cocoa environment in which farmers can earn a living income and help keep the 1.5 degrees pathway alive. Firstly, on climate, we have but a few weeks before COP27 in Egypt, and we have seen the effects of global floods, wildfires, droughts and famines, with a significant impact on cocoa communities worldwide. Climate change and unpredictable weather patterns mean many struggle to earn enough from their crops. Yet emissions from cocoa production also contribute to the problem. That's why at OFI, under our Cocoa Compass ambition, we're working with many of you in this room, our customers, sustainability partners, and government stakeholders to go further and faster to create a brighter future for people and the planet. We are measuring and determined to reduce our agricultural and manufacturing emissions. Last year alone, in partnership with our customers, OFI distributed over 1.7 million trees for agroforestry and income diversification. This allows farmers to grow more without encroaching into forests, while also capturing carbon and supporting local ecosystems in the process. As the theme of this year's event, this partnership is Partnership for Impact. I can't think of a better example of that than a Cocoa and Forest Initiative, which Chris has already mentioned. A recent report by the UN Convention on Biological Diversity found the rate of forest loss from 2018 to 2019 in Côte d'Ivoire and Ghana had halved. But we must now all focus on reforestation and keep focused on other regions with deforestation risk. CFI is a blueprint for how engaging stakeholders on an agreed framework across the whole supply chain, from the private sector to governments in producing countries, supported with vital donor funding, can propel us towards a more sustainable cocoa future. To have the best chance of tackling deforestation and cutting carbon emissions, we need a coordinated approach by the governments of both producing and consuming countries, with policies and funding that do not become an additional burden for cocoa farmers that they cannot afford. We know that helping farmers have a decent standard of living goes beyond just increasing the price of cocoa. We must work with them to develop more professionalised and sustainable growing practices. Agronomy and plant science also contribute to a clearer picture of the most effective techniques for growing high quality and profitable cocoa without harming the environment. One of our recent trials found that composting can see a 40 to 50% reduction in pestle disease when linked to the pruning of trees. That means they can cut down on chemical pesticides and boost their productivity by up to 20%. A very simple change that can have a big impact. As a result of these and other GOP practices, we have helped farmers in our programs increase their yields by 9% in 2021 compared to 2020, to an average total of 635 kgs per hectare. An increase in yield can double the income of a farmer, a quicker recipe for success than any change in price, and more long-lasting. Farmers in managed programs will continue to employ good agricultural practices and increase their yields year on year. It is clear that we need professionalised farmers that not only have good training support, but can have a size of farm with a minimum of 5 hectares with a security of tenure. And I want to close now on an optimistic note. Markets and Markets Research have recently stated that global chocolate market is to reach 160 billion by 2027. Our own forecasts suggest another 1 million tonnes of cocoa is required in the next decade as we remain consistent with GDP growth worldwide. This means we need a greater supply of good quality cocoa, and there are few countries in the world that can provide this. We have a substantial deficit in supply and demand in the last season, and likely a deficit this year. And potentially we will enter a period of structural deficits. We therefore need more supply from no more land. For systemic change to become a reality, no one organisation can succeed, which is why we can't lose our collective momentum that's here in this room and the level of ambition held by all present. I look forward to our discussions over the next 2 days as we delve into the partnership programme discussions. Together we have a huge opportunity to channel this demand for cocoa and wonderful chocolate and cocoa products into tackling climate change and securing a greener future for generations to come. We hope to provide a living income for all. Thank you.
Thank you, Gerry. So we will now have a conversation. You've heard already, there's no shortage of words around how significant this moment is. We will now invite someone to the stage from Ivory Coast, so that is already quite special amidst all the cancellations that you will have heard about. Mariam Gabala is many things, she has many careers, and give her a welcome. Do you have a microphone? Not yet. That's on the way. So let me do a slight bit more of introduction. You are a banker, an entrepreneur. You are a senator from Ivory Coast. But you are here today most, if I can say that, as the chairman of the supervisory board of Solidaridad. Excellent. I will take this seat next to you. So, in a way, let's continue our conversation. We've met yesterday, and you shared what I thought was a very interesting perspective. You said that you were here, in a way, to hold up a mirror to the sector. Did I remember that correctly?
Yes.
Excellent. So let's do that. And may I, by the way, we will both speak in the languages that we're most comfortable in, which for me certainly means English. And for Madame Mariam, that means French. So if you are not so comfortable in either one of those languages, you might want to get hold of a headset so you could follow the conversation. And I will be laser focused to make sure I understand your French, Madame Mariam.
Yes.
But so let's get into the conversation. We'll give people a moment, maybe as everyone runs in panic for the translation devices. I guess that's something that we could have figured out up front. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you could take your seats, because the devices will come to you. This is, ladies and gentlemen, if you can take your seat and calm down again also. This is a special conference, the devices will come to you. So, if you could also, again, keep quiet, ladies and gentlemen. It's maybe a bit much to ask. Don't worry, if you hold up your hand, someone will bring you a device, but I would ask you to be quiet, because otherwise we'll take a huge hit in the program. Again, hold up your hands quietly, no need to ask, it will come to you. Excellent. And all the hands in the air gives it a festive vibe as well. Madame Mariam, let's start our conversation. You, in your capacity, have visited many of the villages in Ivory Coast. That, in a way, is exactly what we're talking about today. Could I ask you to kick us off by giving us your impressions? What do you see in those villages? What strikes you?
Merci beaucoup. Bonjour à tous. Je voudrais, avant de répondre à votre question, déjà remercier la WCF pour l'invitation à partager avec vous cette perspective du paysan, disons du planteur de cacao, dans cette conférence internationale. Et je pense que, toujours avant de répondre à votre question, j'ai tenu à faire 12 heures de voyage pour arriver jusqu'ici, pour juste sonner l'alarme, pour dire qu'il y a des changements qui sont nécessaires dans ce secteur. Le monde bouge, l'économie bouge, et je pense qu'il est temps de regarder le futur avec beaucoup plus de pragmatisme. Dans les années 70, le paysan gagnait à peu près l'équivalent de 50% de la tablette de chocolat. Dans les années 70, on voyait la différence entre un village où il y avait des producteurs de cacao, parce que les maisons étaient en dur, les toitures étaient en tôle, les rues étaient bien dégagées. On voyait la différence entre un village producteur de cacao et les autres villages qui n'étaient pas impliqués dans le cacao. Aujourd'hui, vous allez dans un village producteur de cacao, vous ne voyez pas la différence. Il n'y a pas d'eau, il n'y a pas d'électricité. Et ce sont des programmes qui doivent construire des écoles. Alors qu'avant, les paysans de cacao étaient tellement bien que c'est eux qui construisaient les écoles et c'est eux qui investissaient sur les besoins de leur communauté. Donc, en 40 ans, voici ce qu'on peut retenir de la différence entre ce que le producteur gagnait dans les années 70 et ce qu'il est devenu aujourd'hui. C'est tellement important qu'il faut se dire que les jeunes, aujourd'hui, ils ont aussi des rêves. Et ils n'ont pas envie d'être paysans de cacao comme leurs parents, parce que ce n'est pas quelque chose qui peut leur permettre de vivre décemment, comme on dit. Donc, il faut attirer l'attention sur un peu tous ces changements. Et c'est pour ça que c'est important que dès maintenant, on regarde la transformation structurelle de ce secteur pour lui permettre de survivre.
Okay, thank you. So you sketched quite a harsh reality of this cocoa village, also in comparison towards the other villages. And you advocate for the things that you've been advocating all along for, which is youth in the fight against poverty. So if we want to get closer to making this appealing, to attracting the youth to the sector, as you point out, is necessary. What could change that? If the reality is so different now, how could you see young people in these cocoa communities dreaming of a life in that same community?
Alors, je pense que il y a un shift nécessaire à faire. Et cette transformation nécessaire à faire, c'est d'abord dans la qualification du revenu du paysan. Il y a quelques années, on a parlé du revenu vital du paysan. Le revenu vital du paysan avait pour objectif, in fine, de sortir le paysan de la pauvreté. Regardons aujourd'hui, après l'image que je vous ai donnée, est-ce que ce revenu vital a vraiment permis aux paysans de sortir de la pauvreté? On peut se poser la question. Quand on sait que d'une façon générale, en Afrique, vous avez à peu près 49% de la population qui vit en dessous du seuil de pauvreté et que la majorité de cette population, c'est les populations qui sont dans le milieu rural. Donc, on peut se poser la question. Et au niveau de Solidaridad, aussi, nous avons pensé qu'il y a un changement à faire à ce niveau. Il faut que nous évoluions comme le monde a évolué. Et nous proposons de passer d'un revenu vital à un revenu de développement. Le revenu vital doit permettre de sortir de la pauvreté, mais aujourd'hui, si vous voulez intéresser les jeunes générations, c'est des jeunes qui veulent rentrer avec un esprit entrepreneurial dans les secteurs, que ce soit le cacao ou que ce soit autre chose, ils ont cet esprit entrepreneurial. Et je pense que le minimum sur lequel on devait pouvoir discuter maintenant, c'est ce que moi j'appelle le revenu de développement, qu'on pourrait appeler en anglais entrepreneurial income. C'est important parce que dans le concept et dans la philosophie, quand vous parlez du revenu entrepreneurial ou le revenu de développement, vous permettez aux paysans de se projeter dans le futur. S'il a un revenu entrepreneurial, alors il devient un peu plus indépendant, il peut investir dans sa ferme, il peut la gérer comme un entrepreneur. Et je pense que tous, c'est à cela qu'on voudrait pouvoir arriver. Je pense que le paysan, notamment de cacao et de certaines commodités, a toujours été un peu en marge du monde, si j'ose dire, réel, ou du marché réel, du commerce. Il reste toujours sujet aux aides, il reste toujours sujet. Il y a d'autres personnes qui gèrent et qui gouvernent à leur place. Et je pense qu'il est temps de permettre aux paysans de rentrer vraiment dans le système. Donc, passer du revenu vital, qui permet juste de survivre, au revenu entrepreneurial. Cela veut dire quoi? Qu'on partage les risques. Pour l'instant, posons-nous la question, sur qui repose la majorité du risque dans le secteur? C'est le paysan. C'est le seul qui ne s'en sort pas. Les compagnies s'en sortent, l'État s'en sort, mais qui ne s'en sort pas? C'est le paysan. Et si on veut avoir un secteur durable et viable, il faut maintenant pouvoir investir dans l'humain. Je regardais aujourd'hui, on investit beaucoup dans la protection de la planète, on investit beaucoup dans la nature. Mais la ressource la plus importante ici, c'est l'humain. Alors commençons par investir dans l'humain comme étant la source et le point focal de tout ce que nous faisons dans ce secteur-là.
Can I ask you to add something to that? Because so we've heard on this stage in the last years, of course, the plea for more income as you make now, but you do it in a slightly different way, and I want to make sure that comes across with the audience. Because what you call entrepreneurial income really connects two different things, right? So on the one hand, it connects a shift in risk, which is really what it is, through a higher payment, to an entrepreneurial mentality, right? So it's not just that there's paid more, but there's also, in a way, it's paid to a different kind of farm. So if you could say a little bit more about what you mean by that entrepreneurial, and talk about the role of the farmer also, so from the bottom up, in a way.
L'esprit entrepreneurial ou le revenu entrepreneurial permet de partager le risque entre les trois parties, entre l'État, entre les compagnies et avec les paysans. Pour l'instant, selon mon analyse, c'est le paysan qui prend tout le risque de fluctuation du marché, le risque des prix qui baissent, les risques, etc. À tel point que l'État n'intervient lorsque lui-même, il devient un élément qui, à son tour aussi, absorbe un certain nombre de risques. Alors, l'esprit entrepreneurial, pourquoi? Parce que il faut comparer le producteur de cacao à un entrepreneur, à un producteur d'autres commodités. Et il faut que lui aussi apprenne à gérer ses risques et soit conscient des décisions qu'il prend. Pour l'instant, les décisions, ce n'est pas lui qui les prend, c'est les autres qui les prennent à sa place. Il faut qu'il puisse aussi intégrer et être capable de prendre ces décisions-là. Je vais peut-être vous choquer un peu. Et je pense que c'est à dessein que je vais le faire. Si je veux comparer la forme de rémunération du paysan actuellement, au-delà de toutes les théories, je voudrais prendre une comparaison par rapport à l'Afrique du Sud, le pays d'où je viens, parce que j'étais en conférence là-bas, et je vais y retourner après la conférence. Le paysan ici est considéré un peu comme un travailleur qui est payé juste le minimum pour qu'il puisse acheter un sac de riz, mais insuffisamment, c'est-à-dire le moins possible pour qu'il soit capable, pour qu'il soit toujours dépendant un peu du propriétaire de la plantation. Et je pense que vous vous rappelez qu'en Afrique du Sud, ça a été ça. C'est-à-dire que les travailleurs étaient payés le minimum possible pour leur donner juste de quoi acheter des sacs de farine, etc. pour les familles, mais aussi suffisamment de boissons pour oublier les conditions dans lesquelles ils vivaient et pour les maintenir dans un certain stade de dépendance. Et je voudrais me permettre, malgré qu'on parle de living income ou tout ça, de comparer le producteur de cacao aujourd'hui à ce travailleur dans un secteur à qui on paye le minimum pour qu'il survive et pour le rendre suffisamment dépendant. Mais les choses sont en train de changer et c'est ça que je voudrais dire. C'est-à-dire qu'on se dit, mais s'ils ne font pas le cacao, qu'est-ce qu'ils vont faire? Ils peuvent faire autre chose. Aujourd'hui, regardez dans la physionomie des producteurs de cacao, si je prends la Côte d'Ivoire, il y en a seulement 45% qui sont dans des coopératives. Vous en avez 55% qui sont indépendants. Et ils sont éduqués maintenant. Si le cacao ne rapporte plus suffisamment, ils feront d'autres commodities. Ils vont aller ailleurs. Et si nous voulons assurer la pérennité de la filière, il faut pouvoir attirer les jeunes. Et on ne va pas attirer les jeunes avec des revenus qui leur permettent juste de survivre, parce que ce sont des jeunes qui aspirent à vivre. Vous savez, ils ont Internet maintenant, ils ont Facebook, ils ont la télé, ils voient comment les jeunes vivent ailleurs. Et ils ont aussi envie de vivre comme ces personnes-là. Donc faisons attention. Et je pense que ne restons pas dans les conforts. Et mon message, c'est de dire, osez commencer la transformation du secteur avant qu'il ne soit trop tard. Parce que le confort d'aujourd'hui cache peut-être la crise sociale qui va venir demain.
Thank you. So, you certainly know how to hold an audience, and you warn us in a way that for the two roads that you see ahead, one is the one that you say we are on, which leads to a diminishing sector, let's put it like that, and you highlight another one where the sector becomes the sector of the dreams of the youth. So again, you put this as a moment, a crisis, again in the Greek sense, is a moment of change. So you say we are now at that moment of change. In the light of that, could I ask you to quickly comment also, since you're not here as a representative from the Ivorian government, but perhaps you could say something about this moment of crisis then that we're in, this moment of change that we are in, and how you see that relate to what's going on with these governments.
Alors, je pense que la réaction des gouvernements de Côte d'Ivoire et du Ghana montre bien aussi qu'ils essaient de dévancer une crise sociale, je veux dire, qui s'annonce. Aujourd'hui, j'écoutais, l'inflation est à peu près à 11% annuel dans ce pays, mais le prix d'achat aux producteurs, il n'a pas changé. Il n'a pas été impacté par l'inflation. Et c'est pour ça que je dis qu'aujourd'hui, qui paye les pots cassés, c'est le producteur. Et je parlais de crise sociale, et la crise sociale peut venir, parce que le producteur ne se sent pas en sécurité, et s'il y a crise sociale, le premier bouclier, c'est les gouvernements, et puis après, c'est l'industrie qui va prendre les pots cassés. Donc, je pense que c'est pour prévenir la crise sociale qui est en train de bourdonner que cette protestation véhémente a été faite par ces deux gouvernements. Et je pense que ce n'est pas juste quelque chose de passager. Quand je quittais Abidjan, il n'y avait rien qui disait qu'il allait avoir un boycott. J'arrive en Afrique du Sud, le boycott est annoncé. Pour qu'il y ait boycott, en sachant que le cacao est une ressource vitale pour ces deux pays, c'est que vraiment, il y a de quoi regarder un peu plus profondément la façon dont ce secteur fonctionne.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you for bringing that to this stage, for being here, and for making yourself heard. Thank you, Mariam.
Merci
Ladies and
beaucoup.
gentlemen. Then I will now make way for our next panel, which will no doubt come up on the screen. You will have heard it mentioned before. We are very excited for this one. If I can first ask Beate to join the stage. Beate Weiskopf, ladies and gentlemen, of the German Initiative for Sustainable Cocoa, famously GISCO. And then I will leave it to you to introduce your panelists and have this conversation.
Well, please, Mr. Schneider from Nestlé, Dirk from Mondelēz, and Boone from Callebaut. It's really great to have you here today. I think that is a unique possibility, and also for a World Cocoa Partnership meeting, it is really unique, as we heard before. And I'm also here to have here 3 CEOs committed to a sustainable cocoa sector. Let's start first with the first question to Mark. Mark, please let us know, what has been the cocoa experience? Yeah, you get your micros. What has been the cocoa experience which went closest to your heart?
Talk about this, and let me thank the World Cocoa Foundation for this invitation, the opportunity to be on this panel today. It means a lot to us, and I wanted to underline our company's commitment to sustainable cocoa farming, and I think through our presence here, this is one other way to demonstrate that, and very happy to do this. What I would like to point you to is the photo here on the screen. For me, is the most emotional moment. So this was pretty much exactly 4 years ago. As a company, we believe very much in being at the sharp end, so where things are made or where things are sold. And so it was very important for me to get to Ghana and Ivory Coast and see firsthand how cocoa farming is done, what our initiatives are, and what we can do to improve it. And this was in a bridge school in a small village very close to Yamoussoukro. And it's a bridge school that we proudly support together with the Jacobs Foundation. And obviously, when you see a group of kids, you see them as a group, but you also see them as individuals. And that particular girl next to me, she really caught my eye because she had this perky, optimistic, self-confident attitude about herself and this enormous authority by which she carried herself. And so we took this photo. It moved me so much that I actually made it my WhatsApp photo ever since and don't intend to change it. And to me, it stands for all the things that we really want to do when it comes to sustainable cocoa farming. And also happy to report 4 years later and one global pandemic and so many other problems later, that so far this story has had a very happy development. So in this village by now, we actually have committed to a full primary school that we're supporting. And when it comes to this girl, Deborah, she's by now 14, and the bridge school was originally her only way to get a basic literacy and math education. The next primary school would have been 8 kilometers away, and on a pretty dangerous road. The obvious consequence would have been that she doesn't attend. So the bridge school gave her that chance to get a good start, and she's now at a secondary school close by. So things are developing really nicely. And again, to me, in addition to the hard facts, everything that we talk about in terms of the practicalities, there's emotions involved here. And this moment really, truly touched me a lot.
Yeah, thanks. And I think that is a really good example. Supporting in your programs also the girls, and education really is the basic for empowerment. And I think I can say that Nestlé gender equality is really an important issue for the Nestlé program as well. Let's come to you, Dirk. Dirk, as part of Mondelēz International commitment to source sustainable cocoa, through your Cocoa Life programs, Cocoa Life program, you also visited cocoa communities and the activities of your program in Côte d'Ivoire and Ghana. And what were your most important impressions? What can you report from that?
Yes, likewise, like Mark, I want to thank the World Cocoa Foundation for having us here. It's an honor and a pleasure to be here. And just like the other companies here, we're all committed to a better cocoa sector. Our Cocoa Life program, I think, is an integrated program. We started it 10 years ago, and we had the intention to approach the problems in the sector from a more complete viewpoint. And so basically what we were looking for was increase the farmer's income. It was also increase the yield of the trees, making sure that we were fighting child labor and that we were diminishing deforestation, which are the common themes. While visiting over there, I certainly could see that our activities on the ground were having the desired effect. We spent time with the farmers and with the governments to discuss these things. And so the first impression was that I felt good and proud about our program, but also convinced that it could work. At the same time, I would say the magnitude of the problem and the scale of the problem is very big. And what it did, it convinced me that probably it's not something that one company can do on its own. This needs to be a sector-wide, very well-organized approach that will take years to change. It will require all the end users, but it will also require the governments to really get actively involved, and I'm talking the producing and the consuming governments. It will require the companies like Barry also be fully involved. And on top of that, I think we need NGOs and so to help us with that. So the question for me became, great program, very proud of what we do, but what do we need to do here to really drive significant change? That was my biggest impression from that visit.
Yeah, I think that is really interesting. And as you said, we need a kind of holistic approach really to incorporating all the different actors. Coming to you, Peter, now. Listening to the impressions here from Mondelēz and from Nestlé, what inspires you most in the cocoa and chocolate sector?
Thank you, Beate. So, yeah, I go a little bit sideways here, but I came 10 years ago into this industry, and I'm now CEO of Callebaut, but I'm still a marketeer at heart. Hey, as I worked on products like mayonnaise, bouillon, toilet cleaners, deodorants, I was really impressed with the engagement around cocoa and particularly chocolate. As these gentlemen know, the engagement around chocolate is amazing. And therefore, I came in the role of Chief Innovation Officer. So I had all those R&D people staring at me. And I said, hey, what is then so special about this cocoa? And they looked at me and they said, Peter, don't you know, it's one of the most complex, one of the most beautiful raw materials out there in nature. It has 35,000 genes. It has 12,000 compounds. It's 600 compounds which really relate to taste. It's the richest in the kind of healthy kind of things we are looking for. So, and then I said, all right, it's fantastic. So what do we do with it? I looked to the supply chain, our factories, and they said, yeah, we do a cut test. It's A or B, and then we produce. We do a little bit in the bean blend. And I was just astonished. I said, we have such a beautiful raw material here in cocoa. There's so much we can do there. And therefore, I believe, and I'm fully with Gerry, I believe we need so much more cocoa. And I think that's the starting point of this discussion. Cocoa is a fantastic raw material. It creates beautiful products, which the consumer out there can't get enough of. And I believe we will need much more. So we need more cocoa. And the big question is how to get it. And I think we come to that in this discussion.
Mm. Yeah, thank you. Coming now to Dirk again. Yeah, let's have a look at farmers' income. We heard that farmers' income is really crucial for a sustainable cocoa, and it's key for the farmers to addressing socioeconomic and environmental challenges that farmers face and also the communities face. Can you give us some perspective on that issue, please?
Yes, I will try to. For sure, I think the primary focus needs to be the farmer's income. I would say it also has to see with development around the farmer, the community that the farmer lives in, women's emancipation, children's education. So I agree with the statement. It's about the farmer's income, but there's a lot more that needs to happen. And the reason why there is a lot more that needs to happen is I don't believe the solution is as simple as increasing the price of cocoa through whatever mechanism we all agree on. We've seen that that is not very easy. I think the fundamental problem is that it's very difficult to get a living income purely from cocoa, unless you increase the yield of the trees, unless the market price goes up, and so on and so on. There's a number of reasons why this is difficult. So if you think about the farmer, he needs to become, like was said before, an entrepreneur and look at his business. What does that mean? They probably need to also have access to other crops. They might need to set up other businesses. The women might be involved in setting up businesses. We need to make sure there is infrastructure for the education of the kids. And so I think if you start to look at the farmer himself or herself and you say that the income needs to go up, it's not a simple answer to that question. And I think that's the core of what we're talking about.
And how you are collaborating with or supporting producing governments initiatives in this endeavor?
Yes, we are. I mean, we want to be part of the solution. So we want to work with the governments in finding what is the best way to make this happen. I think it's regretful that they couldn't be here. But we need to continue the dialogue. There is no other way here, to my opinion. And I think I'm talking for Mondelēz, but I know from my colleagues that everybody wants to achieve a solution here. So I think the way forward is collaboration, because as I just explained, I don't think it can be driven by one initiative or by one company.
Yes. Yeah, listening to Mondelēz, big changes are really needed. I think we all agree on that. And Peter, coming to you again, maintaining the status quo in the cocoa sector is really not an option. And what is for you the most important transformation that needs to happen, that we have to reach?
I think at this moment we are all very much outcome driven. We look at bringing down deforestation, growing back the forest if possible. Of course, we don't want child labor. We are, of course, absolutely. We need to increase farmer income, and we do that as a WCF, focusing on those outcomes. We do it all as organizations, as Callebaut. We have our own plan. But I think as a leader, learned very quickly and very early on that the most change comes from when all noses are in the same direction. When energy is channeled into one direction. And I think we need to admit, as a full industry, that we sometimes are too much focused on our own outcomes. I think I would definitely, and I'm very honored to be elected as chairman of the WCF, I definitely will start by listening. I think we have to listen to all the actors in the industry, where we have to go. And then the transformation only can come from a shared vision, a positive vision on what cocoa farming is all about and what it should be. What is the agricultural policy behind it? What's the economic model behind it? And we can't do that alone as an industry. We need to have the origin countries there to define that picture with us. And I want to listen. I want to listen more. But we have to get to that one shared vision, because otherwise we keep shooting a lot of energy. And it's amazing, look around here. We have an enormous amount of expertise, an enormous amount of positive energy in this industry to contribute. But if we don't channel it, I'm afraid we will not get the impact we are after. But we should also not close our eyes. I was just on a trip and I met the minister of the country, who had a very clear vision on what cocoa should be in that country. As a kind of the agricultural policy was pretty clear. I met a farmer who wanted to meet with me. And to be honest, I was quite jealous on his dining table. He wanted to meet me because he wanted to get access to the scientific knowledge, the agronomy knowledge we have in our company. And he was a thriving farmer. And he had only 120 hectares or acres of cocoa. He had 120 of banana, 120 of palm. He already shut down rice. And he said, I would convert it if I was allowed, but I can't. The ministry is clear. If I were allowed, I would convert it all to cocoa, because I get 2,300 kilograms of cocoa of a few of my hectares, not all. And it's a very interesting model. So the model is out there. The only important thing is origin country by origin country. We have to get that picture very clear. What the vision is, the positive vision for the sector. And I'm absolutely sure, with all these companies here around, we want to contribute to it. But it starts with a shared vision.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And how concretely can Callebaut contribute to it, to this transformation?
Hey, I'm sitting here, so they contribute me. No, it's to be honest, we are still a little bit looking. Of course, we have our own program, and we are investing in that program, and we are very proud. I go out with the results of Callebaut next week again, and I'm very proud to show some of the output and some of the outcomes. But in the situation we are now in, where their aligned vision is not there, I think my team, and I'm very, very, very proud on the work that ECA is doing, GISCO is doing. I love the work of NCA in the US, know that team very well. And the work that ECA and GISCO have been driven here around legislation is for me at this moment the only way. It's strange. I could never have thought that I would hang into legislation. But if we just keep it to the voluntary action of all the companies, there will not be a common kind of playing field. And I think we need everyone to join. And at this moment, the best way to get there is through legislation. So I'm fully supporting there. I know my team is doing an amazing job to support that work. And I'm very grateful for the work of DCA and GISCO to drive that. And I hope we can have that same discussion in North America soon.
Thanks. Mark, coming back to you again. From your perspective, what is the biggest challenge for your company's strategy, and what are you doing?
And let me say first and foremost, I agree with many of the things that Dirk and Peter were outlining. And when we say that widespread systemic change is needed and we all need to work together, that should never be a prescription for kind of waiting for everyone else to act and doing nothing. So I think all of us, we're doing a lot of things on our own to drive it forward. And we will not stop in that, and we'll be unwavering. But nonetheless, for the full impact and for the systemic change to happen, I think all participants need to be together, and that's our desired end goal. Now, when it comes to the biggest challenge right now, it's clearly finding change at scale. So we all have programs, we all have ideas. Some of them you saw on the slides as part of the introductory presentations this morning. I think there's a pretty widespread alignment around this, but how do you make it happen? How do you implement it on the ground? How do you make it stick? So as an example, we launched earlier this year our Income Accelerator program. We had tested it before on a smaller scale. We're now in the process of scaling it up. We're at about 10,000 farms, and of course we know that compared to the size of the industry, there's still ways to go. Very much in line with what was said earlier, it's not only about the price. I think the essential feature of this program is that you have cash payments that are independent of the size of the farm and that go and reward specific desired behaviors, like pruning, for example, as a way to increase output, or sending the kids to school, or, for example, planting fruit trees in order to have some additional source of income, but also have a bit of a different crop variety that is very much in line with regenerative farming approaches and addressing some of the deforestation issues that have happened. So these are a few examples. When all of the criteria are met, there's an additional bonus payment on top. And so through that, a farm can earn an additional 500 euros per year, and that's for 2 years. And then obviously over time, the output increases kick in, and that gets them closer to that living income and gets them into the range. And that sort of program, I think we're all aligned with, but now making that really happen at scale is a humongous task. One feature right now, for example, we are grappling with, we're trying to make this as gender equal as possible. So half of the payment goes to the farmer, half of the payment goes to the spouse. It should be mobile phone enabled, but then actually making that happen and implementing that and being sure really that the cash arrives and is dispersed, that's one of those practical challenges that we're dealing with. So we're doing our best, but I think it would be so much easier if there was a bit more of a platform thinking, ways to join forces and making those things stick.
Yeah, thanks. I think that is a really very exciting program, and it's a systematic approach, and really looking forward to see the impacts of this program. Coming back to Peter, coming back to the needed transformation you mentioned before, what should be the outcome of this transformation, and how will this be reflected in your company policies?
Yeah, I think we have heard it now a couple of times. As a World Cocoa Foundation, we want to have a thriving cocoa sector. Of course, a thriving, growing cocoa sector, and that can only happen if we get that farmer earning a living income, or rather be above a living income. And that's where a lot of work still has to be done. There are places where we see a good practice, but we know majority of the farmers are not there. 95% of the farmers are below a living income. So that's a lot of farmers which we have to work on. I'm very sad if I now to look at some statistics. I looked at this one country in specific. You just see that in the vicious circle of poverty, they are in the vicious circle down. It's not up. All that effort going into this industry, and the productivity is going down because income is under pressure. Therefore, they can't invest in fertilizers. They can't invest in the right pruning, so in the kind of pre-harvest, and therefore. That can't be the way. The picture is only one where productivity goes up, farmer income goes up. With farmer income, hey, we know all the benefits will follow. With productivity, we will need less acreage, so we will have less pressure on the forest. With more income, of course, the farmer can hire paid labor and let the children, maybe on the Saturday morning, still do some work, as I did when I was young, but do the work and go to school in the end. So I believe in the end, but it's said in various very good ways, we need to have a farmer who has a better income, and we need joint effort from the whole industry to get us there.
Yeah, and before you mentioned also your commitment to the EU legislation, which is coming up, and in this legislation we will see probably mandatory traceability systems which have to be implemented, and I think a lot of you of your companies are already working very, very strong on this, and here comes my next question to Mark again. Nestlé also has committed to improve traceability, and what do you mean with this, and what is behind this, and is this also a call for a change across the sector?
Absolutely, and I do believe, we talked a lot about the sourcing right now and the farming practices, but let's also make the connection to the consumer. And at the end of the day, if we want to make our case to consumers around the world that the cocoa going into these products is sourced sustainably, you need a segregated, traceable supply chain. So that's independent of legislative efforts, which of course, do have a good purpose. But I think over time, we have to get there anyways, because otherwise, for all the good things we're doing at the sourcing end, if you cannot make the direct one-for-one claim that the product you buy is made with ingredients that are farmed to those principles, then clearly the case is lost on the consumers. And ultimately, we need consumers to buy in and support this. This is what's giving it viability long-term. Now, it's easier said than done. In a sense, we are re-engineering an industry that for 100, 150 years has been working on mass balance, basically putting everything into the same bucket, the same container, and so forth. And so changing that is a massive, massive scale. It takes years to do that. At the very minimum, it's expensive. Here again, to the extent that responsible suppliers on a pre-competitive basis can cooperate, I think it's highly welcome. The scale is important because you have a few small-time players that are doing it, but at scale, I think it's still a massive challenge ahead of us. But I think it's unavoidable, and it's clearly leading to better practices in a more convincing, clearer consumer case down the road.
Yeah, so Nestlé is taking the leadership, thriving for 100% segregated traceability. I think that is really important news. And yeah, Dirk, coming back to you, in your case, how is playing a leadership role in advancing a sustainable cocoa supply chain, how is this playing also an enabler of your company's long-term growth?
Yeah, it's pretty straightforward from my perspective. Our purpose as a company is to empower people to snack right. We're very focused on snacking. And our mission is to, by offering the right snack, the right moment, made the right way. And so if you think about our purpose and mission as a company, that then translates into up to now 3 strategic pillars. We want to grow our bottom line by growing our top line. We want to execute to perfection what we commit to. And we want to do that in a way that we're a company that we can be proud of. So it's growth, execution, and culture. But these days as a company, you can't really live in your own world. It's important what your impact is on the rest of the world. And so we've just elevated in our 10-year plan sustainability as the 4th strategic pillar for us. And if we think through that sustainability for us as a company, we only want to play in the areas where we are important, where we can make a difference as a company. We don't want to do everything. We just want to do it in the areas where we feel we can make a difference. And so to spare you a lot of details, there's 2 ingredients that we as a company are important in. One is cocoa and the other one is wheat for our biscuits and bakery business. So cocoa is at the center of our strategy as a company. If we want to fulfill our commitment of snacking made right, if you look at our CO2 footprint or the impact on the environment and so on, we need to be a part of the solution of the cocoa supply chain. So we translate that in a program called Cocoa Life, which is the way we give voice to our strategy here. So for me, the link between what we try to do as a company and how you then come down to why cocoa and why trying to play a leader role in cocoa is pretty straightforward. As many people have said, there's going to be an increased demand. The numbers I heard quoted, I strongly believe in. I think the pressure from the outside on us about what's going on in the cocoa sector will only increase. And so I think for those 2 big reasons, we really need to step up, and we as a company are prepared to do so.
And as we heard yesterday, sustainability is the 4th pillar of your strategy, isn't it, of the new strategy?
Yes, and yesterday we also announced that we will recommit another $600 million to our Cocoa Life program. And at the same time, wanting to be an actor for a sector-wide change, and that we want to work with the government, producing governments. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. I think that is a good final word for our discussion here. We are coming now to an end. And I would like to thank you very much for these insightful contributions and for taking the time for being with us here. And we learned a lot from you and your companies, which are really front runners in the issue of a sustainable cocoa sector. And you are doing so much and planning so much to do. And I think it's really important, and you mentioned it several times, that the public and private collaboration is key to really reach the objectives which you have. And therefore, as you mentioned before, dialogue is key. We have to be in touch. We have to dialogue. We have to have a trustful collaboration among public and private sector. And we have to go hand in hand to reach this. And I hope that your endeavors are also contributing to that, and we need the other side as well, which maybe is not here in this meeting so as we have wished before. And yes, I thank you very much, and I wish everybody a continuous, very interesting and inspiring conference. Thanks a lot.